Welcome to my attic. People find such wonderful things in the attic. My friend Janice Kaufman was just sharing some things from her grandmother, Dora Hooper Myers. Now this is a picture of Janice with her grandparents, with her grandmother and her grandfather Oscar. She said her grandmother always looked like this with the bun and that same basic dress. She just changed the pattern. Well, when Dora passed away in 1969, Janice was given these things. Now they aren't of particularly great value, but to Janice, they're sweet memories. Now she remembers this kerosene iron hanging in her grandmother's bedroom. Now you adjust the flow of the kerosene right here for the temperature. Janice remembers these American Beauty dishes coming from oatmeal boxes. And on Sunday afternoon, her grandmother served her ice cream in this little bowl. It's great. And how about fried chicken in this everyday platter? Well, isn't that what it's like? The bits of history and pieces of memories. That's exactly what a quilt is. Piece of fabric, a bit of this, a bit of that. Well, today I want to show you how to make the bits and pieces quilt. Oh, it's beautiful with scraps, or you can just make it from new strips. Join me, and I'll show you how to make the bits and pieces quilt. I feel like I've died and gone to quilter's heaven with all of these bolts of fabric. Oh, I love it. Well, you need to have 9 different fabrics for your bits and pieces, and you might find it easier to select from a line, something that a designer put together. For instance, this is the Aunt Gracie's line. Now this looks like the reproduction fabrics from the 1930s. Oh, wonderful, soft pastels. Now even though they read medium, go ahead and put it with a light background, something that contrasts with all of those 9 different fabrics. That one's soft. How about the next one now? You might want something rich, like the Baltimore album. Now those are reproduction fabrics from the 1840s, 1850s. Dark, oh my goodness. Any background fabric would look wonderful with that one, even maybe one that's more beige. Now this one is the antique album. Looks like the Victorian era with the greens and the roses. Oh, it's just a wonderful print. Each piece reads solid from a distance, and then finishing it off with that multi-floral border. Oh, it's great. Well, you know, I took it the hard way today. I selected all of my 9 different fabrics. Boy, I'm working hard. Well, this was my inspiration piece. This is a multi-floral with all great, wonderful colors in it. Now, from this one piece, I selected my 8 other pieces, and you can see that they vary in their scales and their size of prints. Some read solid from a distance, and then this is my background fabric, a great contrast to all of the other ones. Well, let's get busy and we'll just stroke this fabric. Now that you have your 9 fabrics selected, it's time to work with the placement of the fabrics in the block. I worked with my paste up sheet already, and I like the way this one looks. Now the fabrics are labeled from A, B, C on down to I. And then once you have them labeled, then you decide how they go into the block. Now this is what that one block is going to look like when it's finished. Now I would like to show you that it's just one block. Some people think that it's the same as the Irish chain. Well, actually, the Irish chain is made with 2 different blocks. As you can see, this is the one block in Irish chain, and it has a second block that goes with it to complete that chain. Actually, I think bits and pieces is easier, so you should like that. Now select your 2 favorite fabrics first, and they should be A and I. And I'm just going to take a little bit of glue stick, have a little piece of A cut. A goes right here in the block, and then right down here comes I. Those are the 2 that you should like the best. Because if you go ahead, take a look at this quilt, you can see in the finished quilt, those come together into a large pieced block right in the center with A and I. And then you should pick 2 more favorites that should go beside it. Right here you'll see I'm going to have B, and B is used twice in the block. Oh, like this bright pink here. Oh, I think I'll just lay them on so you can see. B right here, and down here comes 2 H's. So those should be your favorites. Now if you can see, D is used twice and F is used twice, so they should definitely be favorites as well. Let me put those in place. And this blue, ooh, I love this blue. And then go ahead, because these are only used once in the block. Oh, put another piece, perhaps not your favorite, in there. Oh, I'm putting yellow in there. Boy, you'd be surprised. I'm liking yellow more and more. Need to have a green, and boy, I don't know where that one went. Now, my inspiration piece is going to look real scrappy cut into it because there's multicolors in it. It's going to fall maybe on an orange part of the strip, maybe a green part, so that'll be a great touch to it. Now, when you cut your strips, when you're working in the fabric store, make sure that you label them first. Gosh, you could get so confused when you get home. I have my strips lined up, and they alternate. I only need 1 of each one of these. As you can see, I labeled them A, C, E, G, and I. Now, each one of these strips for a 16 block baby quilt. You only need to use once. So I have them stacked up and pressed, and oh, let's see how strong I am today. I'm gonna go ahead and just trim off that bruised edge right there and cut these into 2.5-inch strips. Line that up. And since I have such a great stack, just gonna move my hand right in the middle of the cut. Well, these are each used once in the block, and all of these other ones are used twice. As you can see, I've got B, D, oh, it's so easy, F, and H. Now these are also cut into 2.5-inch strips, so go ahead, get your ruler lined up and just trim off that bruised edge and cut 2 2.5-inch strips. Now if you'd like to make a scrap quilt, oh, and you don't want to go into this purchase fabric, you need to have a total of 13 strips. So you just get 13 different fabrics. Gosh, you don't have to worry about using anything twice. This would be a great scrap bag quilt. 13 pieces, use each one once and just put them where you place them. Be great. Now, you need to have background fabric that goes along with these 2.5-inch strips. They're oversized because we're going to square the block up when we're done. The first size strip is a 3-inch. We need to have 2 3-inch strips for a baby quilt. We need to have 2 5-inch and 2 7-inch. We're just going to add those onto the 2.5-inch strips. Well, why don't I just move this around and get ready for my sewing. Now I have my cutting done. I'm on for the rows. There are 5 different rows in the block. I'm going to start with row 1. Now that's just that A and B, and you just take B and flip it right sides together to A. Now I'm using my serger for this because, oh, it goes so fast. Actually, I think it goes twice as fast as a regular sewing machine. And since it's just strip sewing, ooh, it is perfect. Now I have a guide on my machine, so you can see that the edge of that strip is right up there against it. I want you to see how I'm feeding that fabric in there. Because I use a roller system, I'm not right up against that guide, but I just have that fabric going right through my fingers. Oh, I remember the first time I sat down to this 5-thread serger. Oh, I was scared to death. I thought, how am I ever going to learn how to thread all of these pieces? But now it's all computer. There's a screen. It tells you exactly what to do. It's a piece of cake. Now take this strip and drop it on your ironing mat with A on the top. And just go ahead and set that seam. Now you might want to use an ironing board because it's longer, but see how you can use that grid along there? You don't want to have bowed strips. Once you set it, then just lift it up, press it over flat with that seam going towards A. Now, it might be your intention to skip that pressing. What a pain. But it's much easier if you press this as you go along each step of the way, and each strip has a direction that you want to press it. This time, you're pressing that seam towards A. Now, all I need beside this is that 7-inch piece. Better get this lined up straight. It's A, B, and then that 7-inch wide strip. Just flip that right sides together, line that up. Tend to sit back just a little bit from my serger so I can feed that through. Now this is a perfect 1/4 inch on this machine. I like the 5 thread because it has an overcast stitch and a chain stitch. It's extremely secure, my goodness, for as long as this quilt is gonna get used, it's never gonna come out. Just line this up, keep it feeding through. I worked with the kids on a quilt on the serger the other day. Boy, they thought it was the best. Just fed right through there. This is what that seam looks like. With the overcast right there, with the chain stitch right there, those long threads, you just cut those off at the end. You don't have to fool with raising your presser foot up and down. Looking good. Okay, now drop it one more time. Told you, you've got to do a lot of pressing. Drop it with A and B on the top. Line it up on that grid and just set the seam, lift it over all the time, directing that seam right towards A. Let me move it along one more time. Actually, this might be a good team project. Have somebody helping you press as you get all of those strips sewn. Get it done twice as fast. Okay, row 1, done. And now I'm just going to move on and show you how to lay out row 2. Got those strips all set to go. Now, remember how we're using pieces twice. Let me just open this up so I can show you. Take your paste up sheet, keep an eye on it. We're going to need to have B, then we're going to C, D, and then out here on the edge we have a 3-inch wide, oops, that's a 5-inch wide of the background. That's the row 2 line up. Let me just stack these up because, boy, I want to keep those in order for my next sewing. Okay, row 3 starts out with that 3-inch background, and then you need to have D, E, F, and on the other end, another 3-inch strip. That's the order for row 3. Boy, I hope you're keeping this all straight, getting all these letters in order. Okay, now, going to go to row 4. That starts out with another background piece. That's a 5-inch background piece. I need to have F. You're probably getting the idea now. F, G, and H for row 4. Oh, I love that yellow. It's looking so good. We stack those up so they're ready for sewing. And then row 5, the very last row, starts out with another 7-inch strip. You need to have H and this bright pink I. Now that makes up the 5 rows. Let me get them sewn and I'll show you how to cut them into pairs. Bit by bit, I'm getting these blocks done. Now I have all of my strips pressed so that the seams go in alternating positions. Let me show you. This was the first strip with row 1. All those strips were pressed towards that A. Well, underneath I have row 2, and you can see all those seams are pressed down away from that B. So when you put them on top of each other, put strip 2 on the bottom, row 2 on the bottom, and then just interlock those seams with your fingers. Just work them together, get them lined up. Now I'm lining them up on the grid as well, so there's a nice straight line there. Oh, that looks pretty good. Best ruler for cutting this apart is the 6x12 right now. It's just a little bit larger. So line it up at 0, use your rotary cutter, and just trim off that edge. Now these are cut into 2.5-inch pairs. For the baby quilts, I need to have 16 of them. Now there isn't a 1/2-inch mark on the grid, so I'm just using that 1/2-inch line on the ruler. One more cut, and let's see how we can get that lined up. Here's the 1/2-inch line on the ruler. It's right on the inch line on the grid. Just cut right across there in pairs. Well, they're all stacked, ready for sewing. I'm just going to pull this one out of the way so I can get this done. Now, line that up. You've got it lined up, but boy, this time I like to wiggle. I like to push in opposite directions so they're matched. That strip 1, row 1 is on the top. Now as you come into that seam, hold it down with your finger. If you're using a traditional sewing machine, you might want to use a stiletto right there to hold your seams flat. Line that up. Getting it started is the best part. And then as you're going along, just keep on butting these together. Open that up, make sure it's good order. Push it right through. Hold that tight. Gosh, I think I'll take a look at this one first before I show you. You assembly line sew all those pieces. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's great. That is perfect. So you push all the row 1 and 2s through, and after you have all those pairs done, just put it on your pressing mat, set it with 1 on the top, and just lift that up and over so that the seam is right behind one. Boy, I'm pretty pleased with this. It's looking good. Now, we have row 2 to do. Next section, next set of pairs. I'm going to have to set that one aside because I have so much to catch up on. This one is the next pair section we're going to work on. This is actually our row 3 on the bottom, and the seam has been pressed away from this background right here and F, all going in that direction, lined up along there. This is row 4. This time the rows are pushed from the background and from F up. Oh gosh, look at these edges out here. They sure don't look like they're going to line up, do they? So just roll it back like this, and then once you see it lining up, roll it down into position. Boy, this one I might have to do a little fudging on. I hope not. Get that lined up. Wasn't trimming with my knife. You're not supposed to trim with your knife, so these strips still stay at 2.5 inches. Okay, get that ruler back on the end, square that off on 0, line that up on the grid, and cut this off. Now I'm doing 16 blocks for a baby quilt. But if you'd like to go ahead and do a larger quilt, your lap robe is going to take 24 blocks, your twin 40, your double is 48. Oh, this quilt is getting big. Your queen needs 63, and your king 81. Those are big quilts. Okay, this one goes right behind. So line that up, get them matched. This is the one I'm worried about. Look at the background sticking up there. Oversized, I told you, hold that down tight. Get this one, oh, I think I'll just open that up, line it up better, and maybe pull on the bottom one just to make it fit. This might happen to you. You can see how it works for me. All right, that's row 3 and 4, do I dare? Look again, let's see, oh my goodness, worked out pretty good. Just have a little bit of that selvage right over there. Now this one, you're going to assembly line sew too, but you drop it with row 3 on the top, set that seam, and lift it up and over. Boy, I'm getting curious. What do you think? Do you think these two pairs are going to go together? That'll be the best part. Well, let's just lay them down and we'll see. Right here. Let me see now. I'm going to have to pull that paste up sheet. Yep. There we go. It's looking right. Across from each other, across from each other. There's that chain going down there. Now, the last set, row 5, is just going to be a single row. Nothing to pair it up with. Go ahead, drop it on your grid. Get it squared up straight. And just cut your 16 single layers. I think I'll just go ahead and do one right there. You know, while I cut this, I'm going to tell you some more stories about Dora. I'd say I really like that lady. Her whole life was built around the church, and she believed in tithing. I'm going to just take this piece and put it right there onto rows 3 and 4. Just flip that right on there and put that on. Well, she believed in tithing, but she also didn't believe that she should tithe the money that came from Oscar. She lived on a farm. She had chickens. She sold eggs for her money to give to the church. Plus she also milked her cows, made some butter. Oh, she had a wonderful butter press. She'd make fancy butter and sell it. It was great. Okay, now I've got this one. All I have to do is just flip this piece right onto here. And fortunately, these seams are just interlocking perfectly right there. Line that up. I'm just going to take this. This is the last seam in this block. I can't believe it. Well, it's going to take me a lot more time to go back and do all those 16, isn't it? But as I go down, I just open it up, roll it, check on it, and we'll see. This is it. Pretty good. Right there. That's the whole block going right through. The chain, the two pieces on each side. Well, you just keep on assembly line sewing till you have something that looks like this. It does look like bits and pieces of color right now, doesn't it? I'm going to get all these pressed and I'll show you how to square them up. I wanted to show you these quilts before I finished my blocks. Janice's grandmother, Dora Myers, used a treadle sewing machine like my mother's for 30 years. Well, her family wanted to buy her a new electric one, but she said, oh no, I'll never be able to learn to use that. Well, she made her quilt tops out of feed sacks. Now that was easy for her to do because she did raise chickens and cows. Now her first top made out of feed sacks is this beautiful chain link or a variation of double wedding ring. Boy, I looked in the identification books and really couldn't find the name of it. So she did just a beautiful job on it. I love it. Now the next feed sack quilt is this grandma's fan. And I like the way she did it. She took 4 small fans, turned them in to make a square, and then she outlined them with some lattice and some cornerstones. Ooh, that green polka dot is great too. Well, true to her home state and to her country, she made the Lone Star, or the Texas Star. It's just perfect in these patriotic red, whites, and blues. It's in great condition also. Now, Janice actually hung this in her home for a long time. Well, when her quilt tops were done, she quilted them on a frame that she would lower from the ceiling in her living room. Then she'd quilt all day. When nighttime came, then she put that frame back up and there'd be room for everyone again. Now, remember Dora's basic dress. Well, every time she bought her dress fabric, she would buy some extra. And what's unique about this yo-yo quilt is that it's made out of voile, and it's quite a different fabric, very light in weight, and oh, it's just wonderful. It'd be great to sleep under in the summer, but I can just see Dora in that basic dress. Well, she would say to Janice, oh, look at Aunt so-and-so quilts. Well, their quilts aren't as pretty as mine. They just put anything in their quilts. And I made everything match in mine. Well, you have to agree, Dora did a great job. Well, that's just more bits and pieces from Dora's life. The ideal size of the block is 10.5 inches, but yours may be smaller because of all of the seams and all of the pressing. That's okay. Now we want to square them up to the same size. The best ruler is the 12.5-inch square up ruler. So just drop your ruler so that the diagonal lines runs right down through the center of those seams, and line it up so that you have the straight edge of the blocks here and the straight edge over here, and you can see just that background piece is sticking out. So line that up and let's take a look. Okay, this one right here, it measures at 10.25. Right here, it measures at 10.25. So I want to just go ahead, hold my ruler, just trim off that one side, then just take hold of the corner you just trimmed off, turn it around, drop your ruler back on, just line up that side again, and get that centered perfectly, and trim off those two sides. You really don't want to trim off the straight sides. Now, block should be nice and square. Boy, I've got a lot of sewing to do. So you have a bit of fun and get your blocks sewn. And then the next time we're together, we'll just play with some arrangements, experiment with them, and I'll show you how to finish your quilt with free motion machine quilting.